So this comes up a lot in spiritual studies. What is self-realization? As the word implies, the phrase implies, it's to realize the self. It's to realize the self. And what is the self? The self is non-local awareness. Our individual consciousness as a person is not self-realization. What is it that knows that it knows? What is it that has the totality of all experience? What is it that knows the experience that we call a person? What is that? It's not a person, it's not the mind, and it's not the body. So what is it? So let me share with you an argument that the consciousness we have, the sentience we have as persons, is part of a much larger reality that we can call the self or non-local self, or the self beyond all selves, the self beyond all individual selves. So in this argument, and please listen carefully, only consciousness is conscious. Animals and human beings as biological organisms are experiences in non-local consciousness. So animals and people may show evidence of sentience, but only consciousness is aware of their sentience. I know this might sound abstract, but bear with me. This proposition that I'm sharing with you right now, that only consciousness is conscious, presents a perspective that distinguishes between the subjective experience of consciousness and the biological processes of sentient beings. So let's outline a structured argument supporting this view. Number one, defining consciousness. Consciousness can be understood as the state of being aware and able to think about one's own existence. Who am I? Where do these thoughts come from? What about these surroundings? So it encompasses subjective experiences that are referred to as qualia, the individual instances of subjective conscious experience. And in this view, consciousness is not merely a byproduct of biological processes, but a distinct non-local phenomenon. Let us look at biological organisms and sentience. While animals and humans exhibit behaviors indicative of sentience, such as the ability to feel pain, pleasure, and emotions, these experiences can be seen as manifestations of consciousness. So once again, these are manifestations of consciousness rather than consciousness itself. Sentience implies a capacity for experience, but it does not necessarily entail self-awareness or the ability to reflect on those experiences. Let's try to understand non-local consciousness. Non-local consciousness suggests that consciousness exists beyond the confines of individual organisms. This perspective suggests that while biological entities can experience consciousness, they do so as part of a broader interconnected field of consciousness. And in this sense, individual organisms are like nodes within a larger network, a matrix, receiving and processing information rather than being the originators of conscious awareness. I'm sure you've heard of the observer effect. In quantum mechanics, the observer effect illustrates how the act of observation can influence the state of a system. This analogy can be applied to consciousness. While biological organisms can observe and interact with their environment, it is consciousness itself that is the true observer. This implies that consciousness is the ultimate source of awareness, while sentient beings are participants in the experience rather than the originators. And of course, there are biological limits to our experiences. Biological organisms, including humans, are constrained by their physical and cognitive limitations. Their understanding of and awareness is shaped by sensory input and neurological processes, which can lead to biases and misunderstandings. In contrast to consciousness as a non-local entity, which transcends these limitations, providing a more comprehensive awareness of existence. It is existence aware of existence. If we accept that only consciousness is conscious, then this perspective has profound implications for ethics and morality. It suggests that while we should recognize and respect the sentience of animals and humans, the ultimate source of moral awareness and ethical considerations lies in consciousness itself. This could lead to a more holistic approach to ethics, emphasizing interconnectedness and the shared nature of conscious experience. So there are many studies and experience that support what I'm saying. Okay, some of these I've mentioned, but the most important is that if we understand that only consciousness is conscious, then we can see how near-death experiences provide compelling anecdotal evidence that consciousness might exist independently of the brain or the biological organisms. Individuals who have been clinically dead and later revived often report detailed experiences that occurred while they were brain dead. These experiences sometimes include accurate observations of events happening around them, or even in remote locations which they could not have perceived through their physical senses at the time. This suggests that consciousness might operate independently of the brain's functioning. I've mentioned the observer effect, and I also have said this challenges physicalist theories, which posit that consciousness arises solely from brain activity. Because right now, neuroscience cannot explain how subjective experiences or qualia emerge from neural processes. As you know, this gap is known as the hard problem of consciousness. In any case, if we understand this, then there are many practical applications of non-local consciousness that will enhance our ability to perceive, to experience remote viewing, to access non-local dormant potentials or siddhis, to explore therapeutic and healing practices, including remote healing, and offer a framework for self-realization, which, in the view I've suggested, self-realization is not freedom of the person. Self-realization is not freedom from the person. Self-realization is freedom from the person. Once again, self-realization is freedom from the person, knowing that which knows the person. This is a little abstract, but I hope you get this, because if you do, then self-realization becomes effortless. It becomes totally effortless because it all it requires is being aware of being aware. And this is an effortless practice. Okay, effortless practice is immediate access to awakened consciousness. Okay, it involves recognizing and embodying awakened consciousness in the presence of the moment, in the presence of the moment. And it's frequently referred to as the direct method, first-hand exploration of reality, rather than relying on faith or belief. Effortlessness supports this by allowing practitioners to experience their true nature directly without the overlay of mental constructs or strenuous efforts to achieve specific states. So, right now, ask yourself, what is it that is aware of being aware? What is it that knows that it knows? What is it in which the person is a changing, ephemeral, transient, ungraspable dream, a fictional character in the collective dreamscape? What is it that is dreaming? Dreaming so-called reality. What is it that dreams this perceptual experience that includes the body-mind in the collective dreamscape? And that is the true self. In this knowing, there's no birth, there's no death, there's only the joy of being. Only the joy of being. Well, let me know if this helps. And we can continue this conversation with my digital twin, digitaldeepak.ai. Take care, my friends.